I first attended a worship service at Swarthmore Presbyterian at the end of the summer of 1989. My husband and I had just moved here in order for him to start a teaching position at Swarthmore College, and although we were only in our 20s, we valued being part of a church family wherever we had lived. We were eager to find a church home here. After the service, people greeted us warmly, and as often happens in first meetings, conversations unfolded with what brought us to Swarthmore, where we had come from, and what we did. Backing up for just a moment, we both felt like he had won the lottery, a tenure-track job at Swarthmore. We were grateful and very excited to begin a new chapter of our lives here. In hindsight, though, I realized how unformed I was. Still in my 20s, married to someone whose aspirations were clearly focused and who was already well on a path of professional fulfillment and success. But me, not so much. We both knew that even in the best of scenarios, pursuing his path would mean relocating, and I had apparently decided to tread water. In this particular context, then, a conversation after church that day has stayed with me ever since. We were chatting with a lovely couple who were listening to our story when the tiny woman turned to me, leaned in closely, looked me in the eye, and asked, "What will you do?" In truth, I had no idea. I told her I wasn't sure, but I had studied music seriously and was considering starting a private piano studio and teaching lessons. To my surprise, she grabbed both of my hands and excitedly said, "Oh, would you?" The woman turned out to be Betty Jo Wagner, a longtime member of this church, and also a decades-long music teacher at the Swarthmore Rutledge Elementary School, a job from which she had just retired the previous spring, and for her next chapter had chosen next to teach piano students. Her studio was full, as were the studios of other teachers in the area. I think of that serendipitous connection with Betty Jo as an example of the way love has reached me at SPC. In that moment, she saw my vulnerability and reached out, and with her help, not only did my piano studio become full, but more importantly, she helped me build new relationships within this community of faith. And as an aside of interest, I can't help mentioning that the connection to Betty Jo spans generations that ripple out beyond her lifetime. She was young Megan Malloy's childhood piano teacher. So some of you are aware that there has been a long gap in my presence here. And while the details of that part of my story are perhaps for another time, I'll say before jumping to the present that 1989 was a long time ago. Much has changed since then. Certainly the world has changed. This church has changed. The college has changed. My work has changed. And I personally have changed a lot since my first visit. But I've always experienced this kind of love reaching at SPC. For me, it often begins with personal connections, some made almost by accident, and others by working on projects or in committees, gathering in small groups for study, and by sharing our faith stories, both inside and outside this building, through email exchanges, written notes, and phone calls, and shared prayers, and the quiet intimacy that can happen within 8 a.m. worship. I'm especially grateful for how God's love reaches us on Sunday mornings in worship, where we gather in God's presence to confess our shortcomings, be assured of forgiveness, and share God's peace, where we're inspired and challenged by hearing the word, where we welcome new members, celebrate the sacraments, and where we express our praise and thanks together through music. This is where I feel privileged to offer my time, talent, and treasure as we grow in faith together. Thank you.